If you want to get faster on your bike, you need to do some kind of performance test, i.e. a VO2 max test or lactate threshold test. Ideally, you'll do both at the same time so they can confirm each other. And I will tell you in a minute why you need to do those tests. If you want to get fitter on the bike, you need to train. And how do you know at which intensity you need to train? Because of course you can't just go out and ride all day long, like 6 hours a day for many years. But at some point you'll actually reach a plateau where you won't make any further progress because your training isn't really structured. So how do you know your intensities? How do you know your so-called zones in which you can train? Well, first of all, you need to determine those zones, and then you'll need to be able to measure those zones on the bike. And heart rate, I'm sorry, won't be enough, because your heart rate can be way off on a day when you are really fatigued. It just isn't really accurate, nor is the average speed. It really doesn't matter. What matters is time and watts, and of course then the time you spend in which zones measured in watts. And in order to determine those watts, you'll need to do a performance test, VO2 max or lactate threshold test. Those you can do generally, of course, on a bike. You can also do them while running, but for a cyclist, of course, it's more logical to do it on a bike. The lactate threshold test basically measures the lactate that builds up in your blood. Maybe if you already did some running or cycling at a very high intensity, you felt this burn that comes up and basically hinders you to go any further. This is the lactate building up in the muscles. And the test can determine where the point is that you're actually still able to progress this lactate and keep going, and also the point where you're not able to process it anymore, and you will have a limited time in that zone left, and this will be your lactate threshold. And the VO2 max basically is the maximum amount of oxygen that you can take up into your body. Of course, it's relative to your weight and minutes and whatnot. I will show you later. And the VO2 max is a really objective measure. It's like considered the gold standard of measurements, and it can really determine your fitness. And if you saw my video on the ramp test on Zwift, I did this test based only on watts and heart rate, and also on an indoor trainer, so it won't be the most accurate one. This is the test we did in a specific sports clinic. That's not me, of course, that's a rider of our team, but you get the idea how the test is performed. You wear a mask where the oxygen will be measured, and you see here we take the lactate after each ramp because it's a ramp test and it progressively goes up. So every 3 minutes the watts go up 30 watts until exhaustion. So a test normally runs for 20 minutes. 20 minutes is perfect because it's not too long, so you reach your exhaustion level pretty quickly, but that is also the aim, because they don't want you all fatigued at the end. It won't be pretty accurate. So here you see the results from a test, and you see that my aerobic threshold is at 220 watts. That means up to 220 watts will be my zone 2 or my endurance zone. Then you go 220 to 285, which is basically like the tempo zone. It's also like the forbidden zone. You shouldn't be training in that zone. The zone in which you should also be training like 20% of the time is zone 3, 285 up until 383 for me. This will be like the intervals, like the short and hard intervals, and which you take little breaks and then do it all over again. Do like series of 4 up until 8. You should spend around 80% in the endurance zone, so up until 220 watts for me. My VO2 max is 65.4. I'm pretty happy with that, because last time I measured it was under 65, so it has gone up a bit. And those numbers is what I mean by knowing your zones, and now you can train accordingly. For that you'll need the power meter, because you train according to watts and not according to heart rate. So you need to get this power meter on. If you have like $500 spare, and you could upgrade your bike. You see this nice little handlebar from Envy that costs like $400, aero and lightweight and everything. Trust me, go with the power meter, because that's what's really gonna make you faster, not this aero bar. Because then you can train in your zones, 80% in the endurance zone, 20% in the interval zone, and you'll be fitter than ever. So that's it from me today. If you have any more questions, leave them in the comment section below, and if not, I'll see you in the next one.